Hi, I'm Jenny. Pay attention because I'm going to tell you a crazy story. You know how you think you could follow your crush to the end of the world? Well, I followed mine to the cinema and regretted it more than I've ever regretted anything in my life. It was a day like any other. As I was leaving school, I saw Tyler. I was about to wave at him when he suddenly pulled his hoodie and cap over his eyes. I wondered where his bodyguards were. I'd never seen him without them. Yup, bodyguards. Tyler's dad was crazy rich. He was going through the school cafeteria. I silently followed him and saw that he was using the cafeteria exit to get out of the school. He was shaking off his bodyguards. He walked to the cinema, but he didn't go in the main entrance. Instead, he walked to the back and went in a side door. I hung back a minute and then went in the front. I made my way down the hall to the viewing room, quietly fiddled the knob, and stepped inside. It was pitch black in there. I heard the door close behind me. I almost called out for Tyler when suddenly all the lights came on. I quickly dove behind the seats. I didn't want to be seen, even though Tyler seemed to be alone for now. Suddenly, I heard Tyler laughing. "It's okay, babe. You don't have to hide. I see you. We're all alone here, just like you wanted," he said playfully. What? For a minute, I thought he was talking to me. I nearly fainted. Babe? Me? Oh boy, my brain almost short-circuited with excitement. Then I heard her voice, a girl giggling. I peered through an opening between the seats and came back to reality. In the middle of the room was Alexa, the school's most popular girl, Tyler's girlfriend. She rushed to Tyler and threw her arms around him, laughing. I wanted to gag. Alexa had been the first person to make a move on Tyler when he first moved here, but I was still heartbroken every time I saw them together. Anyway, the two started making out right there. Alexa told him that she had booked the whole room and they were going to watch his favorite rom-com together. "Now this is what I call a date," Tyler said. "Oh, it gets better," Alexa said teasingly as she walked over to something that was covered with a cloth. She pulled it down to reveal a loaded snack cart. The cart had everything you could ask for. There was salted popcorn and caramel popcorn, and also sodas, nachos, chips, and fries. I quickly looked away. My stomach sounds like a crying whale whenever it gets hungry, and with my luck, they would definitely hear it. "Oh yeah, now we're talking. This is perfect," Tyler said excitedly. Alexa picked up a nacho and asked him if he was hungry before putting half of it into her mouth and winking at him. I could tell exactly why he was with Alexa. I definitely didn't want to see what they were up to or be seen here like this. The lights dimmed, so I waited for them to sit down. Then, before I could even make a move toward the door, I started to hear noises. I looked at them and saw that they were making out before the movie had even started. Ugh, get a room. Oh, wait, this was supposed to be their room. I quietly made my way to the outside door and tried to put my hand on the handle. My heart jumped. Oh no, I thought, this can't be happening. The door was stuck. There's no way I could be trapped in a cinema with my crush and his girlfriend. Frantically, I yanked it harder until suddenly the handle came loose and fell to the ground with a loud thud. Immediately, Alexa and Tyler turned around to look at me. "What are you doing here?" Tyler demanded angrily. I looked away, embarrassed and unable to explain. Tyler practically growled and said, "I asked, what are you doing here, loser?" I stepped back in fear when suddenly Alexa stepped between Tyler and me. "Calm down, sweetheart," she said sweetly. "There's probably a reason for her being here." Just then, Tyler noticed the handle lying on the ground. Going pale, he quickly ran over and pushed me aside as he tried to fit it back into the door, but it was useless. He tried calling out for help, but that was obviously not going to work. He started yelling at me again and called me a creepy stalker. I just stood there red-faced and wishing for the ground under my feet to open up. As if things weren't bad enough, suddenly all the lights went out and the projector turned off. "Oh my god, creep, what did you do now?" he screamed at me. "I have no idea what's going on, Tyler." I finally managed to choke out. We all switched on our phone lights and Tyler hurried over to the other door, but it was locked. Still going batshit crazy, he kept saying this was all my fault. Alexa just gave me a disappointed look. Then Tyler went over to Alexa and put his arm around her. She said his bodyguards were probably out there looking for him right now and would find him sooner or later. Tyler didn't reply and both walked back to the other side of the cinema using the light of their phones. Okay, cool, so we were pretending I wasn't there. Tyler and Alexa took their snack cart with them, but I noticed that some nachos were left behind on one of the seats. Well, I wasn't complaining. I looked up just in time to see Alexa turn her head away from me. Was she trying to make sure I had food? Did she leave these? My heart warmed to her. Anyway, there wasn't much I could do, so I just took my nachos to the other corner of the room and I sat there and waited. I tried calling my parents from my phone, but for some reason I wasn't getting any signal. Time passed so slowly while we waited. I waited a few hours until it was night, and then tried to get some sleep, but the chairs were really uncomfortable. Besides, I couldn't stop thinking about what Tyler and Alexa were doing at the other end of the room. I pulled up some comics on my phone and started reading to distract myself. They always put me in a good mood, and eventually I managed to fall asleep. The next day, I was woken up suddenly by the sound of Tyler yelling. I quickly got up, wondering what I had done wrong now, but it turned out that his phone had just died and he had thrown it against the wall. As soon as he saw me, Tyler decided it was time for round 2. He immediately started telling me it was my fault that we might all die in here. Alexa jumped in once more. "It's okay, babe, be kind," she said. I felt a twinge of jealousy. So she was hot and sweet. Tyler wouldn't even look at me. I sighed and squeezed myself into a tight ball. There was no getting in between these two. Alexa took him away from me and I heard her say, "Your guards are probably looking for you. They'll find us soon enough." The minute the words were out of her mouth, though, the strangest thing happened. Tyler broke down in tears. Yup, all of a sudden Tyler went from mad bull to blubbering baby. He got down on his knees before Alexa, and for a minute I was about to pass out thinking that he was going to propose. But what he said was even crazier. "Babe, I should have told you before. This is all my fault." "What?" Alexa and I said in unison. She glared at me and I covered my mouth. He started bawling his eyes out. Alexa looked understandably surprised and she tried to get him to speak. That took another 20 minutes. Whatever it was, poor Tyler was having a hard time confessing. Finally, he got to the point, and Alexa stood there in disbelief. "The truth is, Alexa, baby," he started sobbing again, "we've gone bankrupt. Dad is broke and we've already moved out of the house. The guards, they're gone too." I looked at him stunned. My heart went out to him. I looked at Alexa, expecting her to console him. I had no idea he was, but before I could finish the thought, she blew. I'm not kidding. Alexa just started screaming in such a crazy, high-pitched, scratchy voice, I thought my ears would bleed. She was yelling at him for being a fraud and for being the reason they'd be stuck here forever. Tyler and I both did a double take. He tried to apologize, but she was raving and wouldn't listen. She went over to the food cart and dragged it away. "You idiot!" she yelled at Tyler. Tyler jumped to his feet and ran after her. "Babe, don't hate me. I love you. I'll make everything okay. I'll take care of you forever." He was yelling and he practically chased her around the cinema. I sank back down into my corner. Suddenly, Alexa and Tyler yelled and a loud crash shook the room. I jumped. What the hell? I ran up to see what was happening and saw that Tyler was on the floor with the trolley on his leg. I gasped and rushed to him. Alexa grabbed a pack of cookies and stalked away. What a total witch! I tried to help Tyler up, but he looked so hurt I knew it wasn't just his leg that was injured. He was genuinely heartbroken by Alexa's behavior. He pushed me away and tried to get up. He fell back. I tried to help him again, but it was useless. I sat down a bit farther away and watched as he finally managed to drag himself away from the mess. Time passed even more slowly after that. I opened up my comics again and fell asleep. Later, I jumped awake with a little scream. Something had touched my hand. Were there rats here? But what I saw surprised me a whole lot more. It was Tyler. He had my phone in his hand and he was intently reading something. He turned to me and said, "Oh, you're awake?" As if he didn't know. I could have sworn I'd woken up because I felt someone's hand on mine. I looked at him feeling unsure about so many things. "I didn't know you like comics," he said, offering me a bag of chips and a soda. "You even have the 88th edition. That only came out a few days ago." I was pleasantly surprised to hear that Tyler was into comics too. We stayed up a while eating, drinking, and talking about comics. Suddenly, I let out a burp. I immediately covered my mouth. How could I do that? He's going to think I'm so gross now. But instead of calling me disgusting like I thought he would, Tyler took a sip of soda and burped even louder. We both let out a quiet laugh, and just when everything seemed perfect, we heard Alexa waking up and sleepily calling out for Tyler. He sighed and said, "I think it's time we told her." My heart raced. What? No. Please no. Not when we were stuck here for who knew how long. I tried to stop him, but he had his mind made up. There was no stopping him now. He grabbed my hand and, pulling me along, limped to Alexa. Seeing us holding hands, she jumped from where she was sleeping. "What the hell, Tyler? You sure decided to lower your standards quickly." She was half laughing and half angry. I held my breath. If she was angry now, wait till she heard what he had to say. "I always thought you'd be a total witch. Jenny was crazy for thinking of giving you a chance. I tried to hide behind him as Alexa looked at him with sheer confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked. And then he finally told her, "We're not really locked in here. I just wanted to know if you were as sweet and caring as you seem to be, and Jenny said she would help." Alexa was so confused. "What?" "I didn't tell her the whole plan," Tyler continued. "She's been as surprised as you." Well, he had that part right. Alexa might be the first girl he dated here, but I was his first friend. I'd only agreed to do this because I'd hoped to become more than that, and the whole bankruptcy thing totally fooled me. I believed him. He was such a good actor. "The whole thing was a lie?" Alexa repeated softly. She looked like she was about to throw up. Then suddenly she threw her arms around Tyler. "Oh, babe, I think you have it all wrong. I wasn't mad because you were poor. I was upset about not having your guards find us." Tyler laughed and shook her off. He told her it was useless to try to charm him now. "At least she's not a fraud," he said. "I'd rather spend time with her." My heart soared. He would? Alexa started crying, but Tyler walked to the door and dramatically pushed at it. The door didn't budge. He tried again. The door was locked. He turned to me in surprise. "Open it, Jen," he said. I was surprised. "I can't. I locked the hall door, and that can't be opened from in here." "This door? I didn't lock it." He looked stunned. "You took off the handle, put it back." My head spun. I said I hadn't taken it off, it had fallen off. Alexa started crying louder and louder while Tyler and I looked at each other in shock. "Will you shut up?" Tyler suddenly yelled at Alexa. She looked up tearfully. "No, you've no idea what I'm dealing with, you jerk." Then she said something that left both Tyler and I shocked. "I'm pregnant." "What?" Tyler looked like he was about to faint. I actually flopped onto a nearby chair. I looked at Tyler with shock. I waited for him to say it wasn't possible, but he stood in his spot absolutely silent, except for a few curses he was starting to mutter. "You're lying," he said. But Alexa swore she wasn't. Now that she had his full attention, she started acting snobby and entitled. "You will have to look after me forever now." She looked pretty happy about that. Her anger and sorrow were all gone. I shivered. Something was wrong with this girl. She was evil. We all stared at each other. "Tyler, just get me out of here," I said finally. My head was spinning. But of course there was nothing we could do because no one knew how to open the broken door. Alexa walked over to where Tyler sat holding his head and started acting like he'd never broken up with her. I rolled my eyes. I had almost fallen asleep when a loud crash shook the whole room. I jumped. What now? But to my delight, someone was trying to knock down the door. Tyler and Alexa were also standing now. We heard someone outside. It was Tyler's guards. I was so relieved. I thought all my troubles would be over now. So what if the love of my life had a pregnant ex-girlfriend? I was out of here alive. But boy was I wrong. As soon as they burst in, one of the guards rushed to check on Tyler, and two others rushed to me and Alexa. "I'm fine," I started, thinking they were trying to check on me. But to my utter horror, they grabbed my arms and told me not to move. Across the room, Alexa was caught too. She was screaming. "What the hell?" I asked angrily, looking at Tyler. The head guard interrupted and told us both to shut up, and that we would both be taken to jail. I was shocked. This had all been Tyler's plan. We hadn't kidnapped him. "Tyler," I pleaded, "tell them this wasn't my fault." He only looked at me scornfully. "I can't help you now, Jenny." "What?" I asked in total confusion. I asked him what he meant, and the guard finally told us something that horrified me. While we had been locked in the viewing room, two men had broken into Tyler's house. When caught, they said they'd known everybody would be out of the house. A girl had assured them the house would be empty. The girl said she would make sure Tyler stayed with her till the job was done, the guard said. Alexa and I looked at each other and gasped. Before we could say another word, Tyler turned to Alexa and said, "I know you. You were after my money and you set up the state for us. It could have been you." I sighed in relief. At least he believed me. But to my horror, he then turned to me and said, "But you knew my plan, Jen. You broke the door handle. I don't trust you either." He turned to the guard and said, "Take them away."